Ichigo awakens by Touch, Chapter 4. Ichigo becomes a death god. Ichigo becomes a death god. The beginning of the series proper. 'Twas a beautiful night, a silver glow washing over the city of Kurakara. Few lights remain on this dead hour of the night, as it's known a rare moment of silence, an image of tranquility and stillness to the living, not so much for the spiritual aware and the dead themselves. Standing high above the city, like guardian light in the darkness, was a warrior, clad in a black shihakatsu, shihasho, with an elegant blade on the hip. The Soul Reaper stood watch as several monsters slipped into the city. "I sense strong spiritual energy close by," she said before rushing off into the darkness, unaware of who she will meet and what will happen. Evening the next day. The day was on its decline, the sky releasing a burning bronze light over the city, while everyone was going home for the day or indulging in their various hobbies. Some were simply walking around the town, enjoying the ending of the day. Others just goofing around, acting all big and tough, enjoying other people with their attitudes and recklessness. What did Ichigo do in his spare time? He spent it beating the crap out of the latter, of course. There were 5 people in front of him, and 3 were cowering in fear. One was unconscious. The last was getting his head crushed into the pavement by Ichigo's foot. "All right, listen, you trash," he growled out, pointing to a knocked over broken bottle with some crushed flowers. "First question, what is that? Answer!" "Oh, the middle nameless thug started. "I guess someone left those flowers for some kid that got killed here," he whimpered before getting a face full of Ichigo's heel. "Thankfully, this is for comedic effect, so no one is dying." "Correct. Next question, why is it on its side?" he said, glaring at the next 2 idiots. "It's because one of us was careless enough to knock it over," the next guy said, hoping to appease the angry seer of the dead. His response was another hard kick to the head, knocking him into the only other member of his group. "If you know that," he said, eerily calm, before emitting a murderous aura, "then go apologize, or the next time the flowers will be for you," he growled, terrifying the group of thugs as they ran and screamed out their repentance. One by one, bespectacled teen decided to reveal himself. "Was that necessary, Ichigo?" Uryu asked as he went to where a young girl's soul still resided, replacing the flowers and offering a quick prayer. "Probably not," he admitted as he turned to his cousin and a little girl with a bloody face. "But you know how protective I am. Besides, spirits like her deserve to rest in peace." She smiled and bowed to the 2 Quincy's. "Thank you. Now I can rest in peace." The 2 smiled at the girl before walking away. It was one of those rare moments when they talked and catched up, not worry about the training where you can put them through or the schooling to make sure they get that training. "Father says that Karin is getting better in her Quincy practice," Uryu told him. The twins found out about their brother after following him to Urahara's one day. The exiled captain saw little harm in 2 sisters wanting to support their brother. "How's Yuzu's progress with Kido?" "You know, she's having trouble," he said. "Karin has no problem, but it's harder for Yuzu. Maybe she just has no talent for it," Ichigo said apathetically. In reality, he'd rather they not fight at all. He's fine with them learning to defend themselves, but not go into a war like he and Uryu were going to. "This coming from you?" Uryu asked through a laugh. "You still have trouble with controlling your Ryutsu? You can barely use a Hado spell without blowing something up." An unfortunate incident where he caused some major property damage, causing him to swear to not use Kido outside of a safe environment. The only safe spells were still extremely powerful and dangerous ones, very taxing on his physical body. "So, I'm stronger and faster than everything in the city," he threw back. "So you can be the captain of the Soul Society?" "Maybe we'll find out soon." Ichigo looked up in the distance, feeling a reishi he associates only with a few people he knows. "There's finally a Shinigami in the city." This made the two stop. Uryu glared in the distance, still feeling some level of resentment for his grandfather. Ichigo more in annoyance that it took them this long to show up and help the lost souls of the city. "Do you think you'll finally unlock your Shinigami powers now?" "I won't force the issue, Uryu, but I have a feeling that it might happen soon." They then went their separate ways, each feeling that there was nothing more to say to the other. The sun it finishes descent as the lights went from warm bronze to pale silver from the moon and street lights. Minutes of walking later, and Ichigo finally returned to his home, where his family waited with dinner. In most families, so you would hear "I'm home" or "I'm back." In this house, shielded in a strong barrier to keep it hidden from unwanted eyes, Ichigo's first words to his family was "Bakudo 8 Sekai." He rose his arm, now with an orb of light hovering on his wrist, catching his father's swift kick and blowing him back. Ichigo immediately charged at his father, who recovered from the counter and began throwing a fast punch at his son. At the table, eating at that dinner Ichigo came home for, sat his twin sisters. One was as gentle as a blooming flower, with hair much like her mother's, while her sister was more rough with black hair like her father. Can't they wait until after dinner? Yuzu whined, puffing her cheeks in displeasure as father and son fought. Leave them, Karin told her sister, holding her bowl out for more rice. Ichigo needs to be ready for anything. You know that. Doesn't mean I like it, Karin, she said, giving her sister another helping. The fight ended as soon as it began, with a tie between father and son, each one at their physical limits. You're definitely getting better, my son, Ishin said, looking at his son with pride. He was glad that his son was already on par with most lieutenants. He just needed to become a Shinigami to confirm that. The two men of the house returned to the table to enjoy their family dinner. While they still missed the Masaki's cooking, Yuzu was doing a fine job with it. Before they went to bed, Yishin told his son that Urahara wanted to see him tomorrow, that it was important. The next day, Ichigo was walking through the city in his gray school uniform to check up on the spirit of that girl from yesterday. That's when he heard the howling, like a large beast crying out in hunger. He remembered those cries, the same beasts that tore his teacher apart as so many years ago. He ran into the city to find them and the little girl they were chasing. The people were frantically running in terror, away from the danger that they could not see, but it certainly made its presence known. It was a giant brown bug XQ monster resembling a praying mantis in front of him, running for her life. Was the little girl a spirit from yesterday? Help me! She cried, fleeing for her life. Hichiko reached out and grabbed her before skating away with his Hirin-kyaku. He got them to the end of the sidewalk when he finally found that Shinigami he was sensing. She moved so gracefully, slashing through that hollow like a blade on the wind, killing her prey in two swings. Finally, a Soul Reaper shows up, he said, watching her as the hollow dissipated. She glanced at him, eyes wide and sharp. Crap, she saw me do that, he thought to himself before disappearing from the scene. That boy, the Shinigami said as the target of her inquiry vanished from her sight. He looked so much like him, and he was definitely no ordinary human. I'll have to find him. She began to leave to continue her duties. I have some questions for him. Later in the evening, Hey, Kizuki, the young hybrid said as he entered the small sundry shop, punching Jinta in the head for tormenting Ryu again because she's so timid. I'm here. He walked down the center aisle of the small store. Lines of nondescript and unimpressive products of random types waited in the shelves and displayed boxes. It surprised him that Kizuki managed to keep this shop in business. Probably not something he wanted to know the answer to. Maybe it had something to do with the real purpose of the shop, catering to the spirit beings. What did you want? He asked his disheveled teacher. Well, my prized pupil, the buck-hated scientist explained excitedly, putting Ichigo on edge knowing his teacher's mad scientist habits. I have done all the calculations, all the experiments variables, tested in the only way I know. Don't ask, and finally, I feel confident enough to give you this. He threw a black soul candy ball, the same as a fox soul used by the Shinigami. Swallow that, and it will separate you from your body, Kisuke said, being serious with his disciple. After that, you have a window to awaken your latent Soul Reaper abilities, but it's going to be very risky. Ichigo looked at his master, who had no trace of his earlier comical demeanor. This method can only be done by someone like you, and only you. He leaned in close to his student and told him what he had to do. This is going to hurt a lot, Ichigo said, somewhat worried about doing this and excited to finally have the reason to have the rest of his powers awaken. He was about to leave before remembering that Soul Reaper from earlier. By the way, Soul Reaper is in town. She may have also seen me using my healing kaya. He tried to finish before getting attacked by the one person he still could not keep up with. Yuruichi was clawing at his face in her cat form while berating her student. What part of "be careful" keeps getting lost on you? She yelled as Ichigo pried her off his face. You know that you're under his observation. We can't let him know we know he's watching. And Soul Society is not that lenient with someone like you. You could be killed on the spot if they found out the whole truth too early. The old man is willing to listen, but only when someone proves themselves trustworthy, Kizuki said. Your best chance is most likely after Aizen's betrayal, if that happens. I'll keep that in mind, Ichigo said as he left his teachers and started his trek home, back home for his dinner, soul candy in hand, and a sense that it would be used very soon. Kurosaki Clinic, nighttime. He laid in his bed, stared at the small ball in his hand, reflecting on what he was told and what he was going to have to do. His sisters finished up their chores while their dad was at a meeting with his uncle, learning about the new practices and methods for doctors in the ever expanding field of medicine and surgery. Hey, he called out to the only people with him. You think this is going to work? Next to him in a flowing tattered black cloak was the Quincy Zangetsu, while his hollow Zangetsu was at the other end, a color negative of his human half. It should, said the white Zangetsu. He never failed you before. But this could be dangerous for him and those around, the old Quincy said. You might want to make sure that your sisters are behind the barrier when you use it. The barrier, made by Kizuki and Tessai, designed to shield the occupants from the Reishi-based attacks and surveillance, but not keep spirits out. She's coming, Ichigo said as he felt that Soul Reaper from before coming by, the projections of his Zanpakuto disappearing back into their master moments before she finally entered his room. What do you think you're doing? He growled at the black-clad woman, silence being her response. Hey, didn't you hear me? He tried again, and again no answer as she seemed to scan the room. She stood there, in the middle of his room, searching, sensing, trying to find any trace of the remaining hollows. I feel it, she said to herself. She sensed a great energy, but it saturated a good portion of the area, leaving that sense useless. So intent on her mission, she didn't notice the young teen in the room, or what he was about to do. Don't break into someone's room and ignore them, Ichigo yelled, slamming his foot into the short death god. She fell into an undignified heap as the hybrid continued to lecture her. I don't know how you were raised in Soul Society or care or that you're a Soul Reaper. It's rude to just break into someone's room and ignore them while they're talking to you. The Shinigami wasn't listening again as she tried to understand what just happened to her. She was just kicked. She was seen by a human. You can see me. She turned her head to look at the young man. Then she recognized him. Wait, you're that boy from earlier. She remembered seeing him before her. She remembered seeing him pull that young girl's soul away from that rampage in a hollow, only to disappear before her eyes. How did you do that? She asked, getting up to her feet, barely reaching his chin. She began examining him, rudely grabbing his chin for a closer look. You certainly look human enough. Are you defective? Ichigo swatted her hand away and bonked her on the head. You are neither the sharpest sword nor a good of people's person, are you? He growled while the Shinigami was nursing a lump on her head. Now, who are you? You want to know? She asked, glaring at him in an attempt to regain some dignity. Very well, I'm a soul. She was interrupted as Ichigo hit her again. I asked who, not what. Pay attention. He lectured at the Soul Reaper, who, as the Soul Reaper was about to cry from the pain. I already know about the Shinigami, Hollows, and Soul Society. What I don't know is who you are. The Soul Reaper looked at him in surprise. Most humans shouldn't know anything about any of those. Now will you please tell me your name? My, my name is Rukia Kuchiki, she told him. Nice to meet you, Rukia, he said, not even bothered with any formality. I'm Ichigo Kurosaki. For a moment, Rukia could swear she saw her old mentor again. The boy looked so much like him, it was uncanny. Now, can you tell me why it took so long for a Soul Reaper to show up and help any of the souls here in this town? Her response was unsheathing her blade and preparing a console on a non-scripted soul next to him. The influx of spirits and hollow suddenly rose in this particular city. The soul vanished in a flash of light and turned into a black butterfly flying away from the duel. When I got here, I was searching for those hollows, but something is making it hard to sense them. Or someone, he said, sensing several hollows coming to his home. You probably noticed that I probably have some pretty abundant spirit energy. Those hollows are probably looking for me, he said, opening his window and letting the hungry wails echo into their ears. And they sound hungry. Then stay here, Rukia said, preparing herself for the coming challenge. It's my duty to purify these souls. Ichigo ignored her as he made his way for the door. Hey, wait! Ichigo did not stop. He couldn't. These things were going to make a danger to his family. He had to protect them. He will protect them. Yuzu Karen, he called out to his sisters as he descended the stairs. I'm about to do something dangerous and stupid. I'd like a snack when I get back, he said as he walked out the door. Ichigo, wait up! Don't do this, Rukia called out as she chased after him. Bye, bye, Shinigami-san, Yuzu called out, already thinking about what to make her brother. You think that Soul Reaper is going to move in now that she knows about Ichigo? Colin asked in channel surfing. The more the merrier, Colin, the more cheerful twin said. With Ichigo and Rukia, the duo exited into the darkness of the night, the moon and various streetlights exposing the five large beasts craving Ichigo's bountiful power. Different shaped heads, different colored bodies, different hulking beasts standing over their soon-to-be prey. Ichigo met their hungry gazes with a defiant scowl, a hand in his pocket, rubbing his black soul candy. He figured now was the time to use it. And if anything was to happen, well, he had Zangetsu for that. Rukia, he said, pulling the soul candy out. Watch my back. He swallowed the small black ball and felt his soul and his body and soul separate as he jumped at the first hollow in front of him, a large, dark, grayish one known as Fishbone D. Stop it, you fool! You'll get yourself killed! She called out to the foolhardy teen. The hollow slammed his fist into Ichigo's body and sent him into the middle of the others. Ichigo silently thanked his dad for the constant attacks, letting him deflect the blow enough to not hurt him, but get him right where he wanted to be. Ichigo! He heard her cry. She was scared for him, worried for him. This would be hard to explain to her. Sangetsu, he called out in his mind to his powers. Help me through with this. His hands went to the chain bound to his chest and began to pull, trying to rip off his chain of fate. Everything around him went silent. He could no longer hear the howling of the beast closing in on him, nor Rukia's frantic warning that he was doomed. The seal came off his chest with frightful ease, and he was consumed with a whirlwind. Ichigo! Rukia cried out. She never saw anyone try to tear off their own chain of fate like that, like he just did. He willingly turned into a hollow. To what end? What was he thinking? She didn't realize watching that all-consuming whirlwind of dust and power that the hollows that were attacking the boy had vanished, completely gone with no trace. Rukia couldn't comprehend what she was watching. 1 second, 4 hollows were about to devour that idiot brat she just met. Then the next, they were just gone. All there was left was a crushing pressure greater than any hollow she'd ever seen. She dared to believe that it actually matched her brothers in power. So focused was Rukia that she didn't notice the fish-like hollow that attacked Ichigo creep up behind her. Or that she was getting weaker by the second. The hollow was planning to devour the absent-minded Soul Reaper given that prime chance, but the whirlwind finally stopped. The dust was slowly settling. The hollow known as Fisherbone D felt he was no longer a predator here. He was going to be the prey. In this dust, he saw a figure with a pair of glowing yellow eyes, the last thing he saw before a massive blade cleaved his skull. Well, Rukia heard from someone coming up behind her. Looks like my boy got this. She turned to see a man similar to Ichigo with dark hair and a thin beard on his face. Ichigo moved from his position of his transformation to sink his massive katana into the hollow skull. Come on inside and we'll discuss the living arrangements, Ishin said as he turned to his home, carrying his son's soulless body. You might be with us for a while. Ichigo finished his killing the hollows and joined up with Rukia. Who is that? She asked the hybrid. Shocked still racked her being from what she just witnessed. First, Ichigo was just about was another plus, ejected from his body. Next, he tore off his chain of fate and decimated five hollows with ease. What was with this family? What was with Ichigo? And she wasn't sure, but she could almost swear she saw him with a mask before attacking that last hollow. This is my father, the former captain of Squad 10, Ichigo said as he made his way back to his home and family. He'll fill you in. End of chapter 4.